So I went to Tasmania. I was going to say Tassie, but I figured I'd just give it the full name. Tasmania. I went there the other week for my holiday because I wanted to go on holiday. Hadn't been in about 3 years. It's wonderful. Cleanses the mental health. Wonderful. And I had a curiosity because they had JB Hi-Fi there. We went to Launceston originally because we flew to Hobart, drove to Launceston. And I went there, I was like, hey, we'll go to the JB on the Tuesday morning, whatever. And actually it was the Monday morning. And take a browse. See if there's anything I want to buy, you know. They had the new Joker film come out in the Steelbook, which obviously I wasn't going to get. And they had Memoirs of a Snail, which came out, which I did eventually buy, but I actually had to buy that in Hobart. I only bought 2 films from JB. I bought Memoirs of a Snail and Pleasantville on DVD. But that was at Hobart later in the week. Did the rest of my travels, went back to Hobart, was like, hey, let's check out JB here, whatever. And that's where I got these 2. Pleasantville for $10, and I got Memoir of a Snail for $26. Standard retail price, no sales, whatever, even though Pleasantville was part of a buy 2, get 1 free, and I was just like, nah, I'm good. I'll just buy this one for $10. And so I was curious, because there was also another JB at a place called Eastlands, which was about like the other side to Hobart, like adjacent across the river kind of deal. So I went to all 3. I didn't film myself at any of them. I was thinking of it, but then I was like, you know, this isn't really such a boutique thing, for one thing. Also, I'm not American, so my ego isn't that big. You know, I know of plenty of American YouTubers who gladly film hauls of them going to Walmart or whatever the shit to buy their Blu-rays, and look at me, I'm looking at the shelves. Cool, good for you, mate. I actually want to respect the people at customer service and not fuck around and film people in public. So I endeavoured to not do that, and instead just experienced it. And so I'm going to talk about all 3. What did I think of them, and how would I rank them? If you were going to go to Tasmania to go to JB Hi-Fi, what should you do? TLDR, I don't know, unless there's something you really want to get, don't worry about it. Because I went to all 3. Launceston was fine. It had 2 or 3 rows, had some CDs as well, but it didn't have anything that really caught my eye. Most of it was just new stuff. None of it was exceedingly rare or like hard to get. It wasn't as like, oh, well, no one's going to go to Tasmania to get their stuff, but it's like, no, there are people who still live in Tassie who are just going to go there. So obviously I'm coming from the mindset of someone who's been in Melbourne my whole life for buying things at JB, so I've never had to contrast it to Sydney or Brisbane or Adelaide, but I figured I'd at least have a mindset, and the realistic mindset was just, okay, Melbourne definitely surpasses all of these, but I was hoping for maybe that there will be releases that are not common in Melbourne because they wouldn't be sought out by people, maybe they wouldn't be bought, even though realistically, if people wanted them, they would have been exported, like bought from a store or online and shipped to them. So in reality, that's probably how it worked. Any of the really harder, rarer ones weren't just I wasn't gonna randomly find a Terminator Steelbook at any of the Tassie ones. I wasn't gonna randomly find any like older releases from Imprint or whatever. Even though I did find Chinese box, but it was like still available on the Imprint website. So I'm like, and it's also still available in most places anyway. So I was like, okay, I don't need to worry about it. So there's nothing exclusive that I found there. Everything I bought, the 2 things I bought, Memoir of a Snail had just came out, so that was everywhere, and Pleasantville was still readily available in Melbourne. So I'm like, okay, cool. Launceston was okay. It's definitely the second best of the 3 that I went to. It has a decent enough range. It's definitely more of a home store. I mean, it's right next to a Bunnings. And it's, you know, just outside of the main neck of the city, but again, it's just over a bridge, so it's not hard to get there. There's a lot of people there. You got TVs, all this kind of home media stuff. It was fine in terms of just Blu-rays and DVDs and CDs. It had a decent range. It wasn't huge, but it also wasn't minuscule. They still had a good variety. They mixed a lot of their stuff together, so there wasn't exactly like, they did have a special interest section, but for the most part, like the superhero, 4Ks, new releases, and kids section / Disney had their own places, but for the most part everything else was pretty combined, DVDs and Blu-rays. They did have a horror section. It wasn't too big, but it was noteworthy at least. It was okay. it was fine, but it was also just like, I guess because I was a bit underwhelmed by having been in Melbourne this whole fucking time, and also being like, oh, there's actually not much here in contrast to what I could get in Melbourne. Like, none of it was especially special. I went through every single shelf there, and it's like, there's nothing here I can't get elsewhere, and there's nothing here that is like rare or hard to find. Which was a bit, that was my main disappointment, but again, that was just because I was hoping to get something special. So that was on me, but as a general consumer, Launceston was fine. You know, it's not the biggest range, but it's fine. It's decent. The worst one was the one at Eastlands, because when we got there, it's basically a tiny corner, and it had a very small CD section. It was basically one shelf of CDs, and I actually think it was two shelves of CDs, but not a lot, and like three shelves of vinyl. I don't know why the hell people are buying vinyl, but people are buying vinyl. I only did it for challenges, and that wasn't even at JB, which is fucking annoying. Part of my constant French. The unique part about Eastlands was that they didn't have individual sections. They had 4K, and I think they had a horror section, if I'm not mistaken, and like one extra shelf of box sets, which was basically one for box sets and one for like brand new stuff. Like, oh, this is new releases, and it's like on the corner of a shelf. Like, yeah, you have your two shelves in pyramid form, and it's on like the front of the shelf. The other end was box sets. But the rest of it was all combined. All the superhero stuff, all the special interest stuff was in just this regular one shelf here, two shelves there, and then when you turned around, 4Ks, and that was it. There was like a small kids section for Disney stuff, but that was it. So that was a very, very small amount. And to be fair, given it's not that far of a drive from Hobart, it was only like 10 to 20 minutes away from Hobart's actual JB, I'm not too surprised that there's not much there. It was, again, mostly for the home media stuff. Well, just for the home stuff, you know. If you want to get a washing machine or a fucking blender, you go there. So, it's fine. It's not really the place I would go to buy movies, but at the same time, if you're in that neck of the woods, it's like, yeah, sure, why not? And we were able to park around back, got in there quite easily. It's an okay shopping centre for that. Like, they still had, like, other regular stores, so it's fine, but it was my least interesting one there because of how minuscule the amount of stuff that there was there in terms of variety. And again, I'm mostly only looking at it for a Blu-ray, DVD, and occasionally CD perspective because I wanted to see if they had soundtracks. They didn't have soundtracks there. They did at Launceston and Hobart, but not at Eastlands. So that was disappointing for me, at least. But then Hobart itself, which I think was the best one there, had obviously more range. They had several shelves. It's underground, so there's actually no reception unless you go to the... Well, it depends. If you come from the street access, there's no reception. But if you come from inside the building, which is actually upper layer, there was reception, so I was able to get reception at the checkout, where I was able to look up to see if the films I'd picked up were rare or not. So again, Chinese box was there, it was like imprint number 30, but it was readily available everywhere else. And then the other two, I mean, Member of a Snail, I picked up because I wanted to get it immediately anyway, and Pleasantville, $10, even though it was still available at other places. I'm like, well, it's only $10, and it's a film I want, so I figured I'd buy it, even if it does do that encouraging thing of now it's going to get a new Blu-ray release because someone bought the DVD, you know, that kind of weird thing that keeps happening to us. But fine, it worked out. They had a good selection of stuff, though. They had several shelves. They actually divided two of the sections with figurines and stuff, which was fine, I guess, you know, merchandising, whatever, because they basically had the whole CD vinyl section. They had two Blu-ray shelves, one which then pyramided over, and then one that was facing it, so you had a good A to Z collection. Big horror selection, which wasn't too bad. 4K selection, they had a special interest section, a Disney and kids animated section. So they had all these things in nice places. They had a whole shelf that was just for football, you know, for AFL, which is cool. So I was like, you know, that's nice for its own special interest stuff. They had some good box sets there that I hadn't seen yet. Some that were brand new imprint releases, like the erotic Japanese Ghost Story one that had just come out. But I'm like, I'll wait for a sale to get that, you know me. But yeah, so there was nothing there also that was like exceedingly rare or whatever, because I imagine, again, unless that stuff was exported out to the mainland from Tassie, it probably didn't make it there. They did have 2 copies of Neverending Story. I think that was at Launceston, though. No, maybe that was at Hobart. I think that was at Hobart. But either way, it's great that they've got the big imprint releases. Like, I know it's still Australia. It's not like another country. This isn't New Zealand. At least if I was going to New Zealand, that would be a much more interesting thing, because they do external imports, where you can still get Disney films from New Zealand because they import it in, but it's hella expensive, not to mention different rating stickers on the outside, because they have to put their own stickers on top of the Australian ones, which is weird, but they do that. That's my copy of Terminator, because for some reason I got it from New Zealand for some reason. I don't know. Don't ask. I didn't actually get it from New Zealand, but it came from New Zealand anyway. But yeah, so as an overall for the journey, it's really just whatever they have in stock. Their website was pretty accurate to what was actually in store, because there were some films I was looking for that they didn't have, but they did have in mainland, or at least in Melbourne. Didn't have any problems with, like, customer service or anything, like, you know, friendly staff, had no issues with that. Realistically, it didn't feel too limited, except for the Eastlands one, and that was just, it felt like just excess stock if you happen to be in the neighbourhood. But again, most of that stuff was at Hobart or at Launceston. But for the most part, it was fine. It was nice to go there to see what else was there, but it's JB. It's still just JB. It's nothing special. It's going to be the same kind of store wherever you go. So for the most part, I'll give them that it was easy to find stuff. They had good sections for it. Hobart with the broadest range, mostly because it's the capital. Launceston had a decent range, but it was smaller, but it was nice to have it. It, you know, being a 2-and-a-bit-hour drive from Hobart, it's like, unless you want to pay that extra, like if you live in Launceston, if you want to pay that extra for the stuff to be shipped from Hobart, you can still do that. So there was definitely a lot of stuff there that I found at Hobart that I could find in Melbourne. So at least there's a lot of, realistically, similarities. Because if you are someone who wants a lot of these Blu-rays and you live in Hobart, at least you don't have to always import it from Melbourne or something. But at the same time, sometimes you just do. You know, sometimes you got to get it from Queensland or from Sydney or another place. Because I've had to do that, being someone from Melbourne, where I've ordered something and I've had to actually pre-order it, or I've had to order it for delivery and it's come from another state. It just happens that way sometimes. But yeah, it wasn't the intention to go to Tasmania, to go to JB Hi-Fi. Clearly, I wanted to go to see the wildlife, to see the nature and all that stuff, to see family. It was just that we just happened to be there, and I was like, you know, we have time. Let's go to, you know, JB in Launceston. Let's go to JB in Hobart. And then my aunt actually suggested that there was a JB at Eastlands, which we were looping around. We were going from Hobart to Brighton, to the wildlife sanctuary there, to Richmond, and then we're going back, and on the way back we're going to go past Eastlands. So I was like, well, I'll just drive into Eastlands and we'll see what's there. What's that? Bugger all. Okay then, that's how it is. So, yeah, not the most real, like, I don't know, interesting experience, realistically. Obviously, you'd probably be thinking, oh, he went to a different state, what did he cook up? Basically nothing that he couldn't get at home. Yeah, because that's just sometimes how it works, you know. I didn't know of any actual stores that were down in Hobart that sold physical media. Obviously, if I had done the research, I probably would have found a couple, and I might get some people in the comments section saying, actually, you should have gone to this place. And please feel free, if you know of a place in Hobart or anywhere in Tassie that sells physical media, let me know. I did at Richmond actually go to an antique store, which they had a whole room full of vinyl and CDs and Blu-rays and DVDs, but the Blu-rays and DVDs were all concert films. I did get the Lynyrd Skynyrd one from 2015, because it was $10. But that was it. I just figured, hey, that'll be funny. They got a free bird on that, and that's it. That was the only reason I bought that Blu-ray. So, yeah. But as it was, I didn't really expect to find much. I found more stuff on Facebook Marketplace that someone was selling, because I got Adventure Time for like $65 instead of paying $200 to $300 that it's actually worth. So I was very happy about that. So I didn't go empty-handed on the way home in terms of physical media. If you saw my recent mail video where I dived into all that stuff, you'll see what I got. But again, I wasn't going there for the physical media. It just was if I happen to get anything, I'll get something, and that's nice. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know down below if you have thoughts or feelings. See you next time. Adios.